Hey, this is Irvin Griffin, and welcome to another edition of Grown Man Talk. Yesterday, I made a video on the Janet Jackson announcing she's splitting from her husband. Can't remember his name right off, but I did say his name in the previous video. And this morning, while I was getting ready for work, I listened to both Kimberly Frazier and Tareen Rain, both good YouTubers. And Tareen Rain I've actually personally spoken to. In fact, I have an old video shoot that I did with him that was over 2 hours, but doesn't feel like 2 hours. So if you have time, go check that episode out. It's a very good episode. Meantime, they both brought up good points about the Janet situation. Here's my thing. I think both of them are at fault in this, honestly. Because usually, and a person left a comment on my post. He brought up a very excellent point. He said, usually men like that, in the Muslim religion, usually number one, don't marry outside of their race. Because even though this man is a man of color, excuse me, even though he is a man of color, he is Arabian, Middle Eastern, one of them dudes. And Janet is obviously a black woman of African descent, number one. And number two, they usually don't get with, as you'll see with some of the pictures, they usually don't marry women who have exposed themselves as much as Janet. Because let's be honest, I love me some Janet Jackson. I love her music and style and everything. But let's be honest, especially since the 90s. She's not exactly known for being covered, you know. I mean, we've seen everything but her private part, but her woo-ha, shall we say, between her legs. I mean, that's probably the only part of her we haven't seen. I mean, we basically seen every inch of her since the 90s. So you know, she's not exactly known for being covered, and so I kind of fault him for taking this American woman, and this is regardless of race. This is an American woman, and you want her to conform to this Muslim religion, which this is the part where I blame her too. I blame her too because, you know, those guys, even the nice ones, are pretty hardcore when it comes to their religious beliefs. And those guys don't play. They expect their wife to conform every bit to them. Now, some are cooler than others. I'm sure that's in any religion, because you got fanatics, male fanatics in the Christian religion too. In any religion. And I respect Kimberly Frazier's view when she was saying, Janet, leave those foreign men alone and stick to black men. With due respect to the sister, I don't necessarily say put all foreign men out, but honestly, she should have vetted this guy. And the first time she saw something serious go down, she should have got out, is my thing. And same thing with him. When he saw, especially Janet, I think he probably must be one of them closet fans, because he saw Janet Jackson and Janet Jackson took an interest in him. Let's be honest. They may say, I want my wife humble. I want my wife covered. He probably got all kinds of pictures of her back in her prime, almost nude. And he liked what he saw. And Janet Jackson was showing him. And, you know, as far as status and money, I mean, Janet Jackson, broke for Janet Jackson is still richer than I'll ever see. But this guy is a billionaire. Not millionaire, billionaire. He makes Donald Trump look broke. Okay? This guy easily outclasses her as far as financially. Now, as far as name recognition and everything, oh yeah, Janet's more known, obviously, because of the Jackson family, particularly her. I mean, when you think of the Jacksons, the first ones that come up is, of course, Michael Jackson, but Janet is like second that comes up. But as far as money and financial status and stuff, oh, like I said, he makes her look broke. He makes Donald Trump look broke. I think he's worth like what, $900 billion in the fashion industry. I mean, this man's rolling in dough. And word is, I mean, this hasn't been confirmed, but there is a prenup of $500 million, and plus, it's after so long, and it just happens to be past 5 years of marriage. So it also makes me wonder if something wasn't going on Janet's end too. Maybe she was planning this all along. She just put up with it for long enough to have a child, and then after she had that kid, she was saying peace out. Now, I'm not saying that was Janet's intentions, because I don't know, and I'm not saying that $500 million prenup was in there, if it's in there, is a fact. But if it is a fact, and there is a stipulation like that, it would not surprise me if that's what she was planning all along. But, you know, there's always been weird, and Tareen Rain brought this up. There's always been weird marriages when it comes to show business. I mean, Janet and this dude is not unique. I mean, go back to, and this is an example he used, go back to Mariah Carey and Tommy Mottola. I mean, this man was like that same age I am now. I'm about 42 years old. He was like 40, 42. He's the same. I'm the same age. You know, he was the same age back then that I am now. Just speaking of Tommy Mottola, he's probably in his 60s now. He married Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey was nothing but 19 or 20. I mean, he had children that was her age, that was old enough to be her brothers or sisters. And even back then, even before the age of social media, this was viewed as very creepy. And look at some other weird marriage. Look at Mel B and her husband that are now getting a divorce. Now, granted, that's a completely different situation. But Mel B, many say she jumped into that one too soon without properly vetting this dude. Another one, Katie Holmes and Kimberly Frazier. I have to credit her with this. She briefly brought this up. Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise. That was a weird marriage. Which makes her alleged fling with Jamie Foxx, which they've always denied. But I'm gonna use some Kimberly Frazier logic here. Those two, and excuse my language, but those two have fucked. They've done the deed at some point, I believe. They just denying it, you know, for looks and everything. But I think those two have canoodled, shall we say, at some point or another. But that makes that relationship look damn near normal compared to her and Tom Cruise. And she pretty much had to do the same thing. She stayed with him long enough. She had their daughter Siri, but then when she saw the opening to get out, she did. And this is somewhat similar. I think this is probably the best comparison. It's somewhat similar to what's going on right now with Janet Jackson, except Janet has a bad history with relationships. She had that marriage with James DeBarge back in the 80s, back in the mid 80s, which ended up being annulled. Then she had a secret marriage to Renee Alonzo Jr. From 1991 to 2000, which I think is her longest marriage ever. 2000, they got a divorce, and from what I understand, the prenup that was done there was, while usually rock solid, the marriage was done in California, and out in California, prenups are not always honored. So Janet, I think, had to fork over some cash. Not to mention, Alonzo threatened to reveal some secrets on Janet, including alleged affairs while she was on the road with her dancers, and not just the men ones either. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I think she ended up having to fork over some cash for that one. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section, but I think she had to fork over some pretty good cash for that. And now we got this one with this Muslim guy, which I fought both of them. because she should have known when you mess with one of those dudes, you mess with one of those dudes are serious. Even the nicer ones, they're serious when it comes to their religious beliefs and how they think the wife should carry themselves. They are very strict. And a woman like Janet, no. And all I got to say is it must have been a fantasy for him. I think he was a closet fan, personally, because as this one person that I mentioned earlier that posted on my previous video on this said, usually they don't marry outside of their race, and that includes other women of color. Usually they're Muslim and they're, let's say, an Arab. They're going to marry a female Arab. They ain't going to marry another woman of color. They're not going to marry a black woman, especially. They're not going to marry a Hispanic woman. It's got to be a woman from their background, whether it's Middle Eastern, Pakistani. That's usually, they usually tend to stick with their own. They're even stricter about it than we are, honestly. Yeah, they might have a fling or two with somebody outside the race, like for a fantasy. Not unlike, let's say, some of the conservative people that we find out later have flings with the very people that they used to talk junk about, i.e. Sarah Palin, i.e. Ann Coulter. Wouldn't be surprised if Tomi Lahren, and this isn't about her, but I wouldn't be surprised if she did a little something along with Megyn Kelly. And, I might make a little side video on that. But getting back to this, usually they don't go outside of their group. And then second of all, they definitely don't like women like Madonna or Rihanna, or Lady Gaga. Women that have no issues, even if it's artsy, have no issues about showing skin, about basically knowing what they look like from head to foot without actually being intimate with them. What every inch of their body looks like. They don't like that. And Janet is no exception. I mean, she's done that as well. I mean, not counting the whole Super Bowl crap. But yeah, this is a real messy situation. My prayers is really for that child, if nothing else. I mean, as a child of divorce, I understand how terrible it can be. But at least he's getting his early on. But I hope later on it doesn't become an issue, because let me tell you, especially with two parents that aren't agreeing with each other, let's just say I know firsthand how that goes. And it stinks. Anyway, that's it for this edition of Grown Man Talk. I'm out.